My name is Stephanie Doors. I'm an associate professor of food science in the food science department. I'm also the undergraduate program coordinator, so I'm the one that sees all the students. And I'm also in charge of placement for the department for jobs and internships. Most of the time when I see students, they usually come to our department with an idea that they like food. And I have to say that food science is a little bit more than just liking food. And in actuality, it's a very complicated process really to make food. So we look at food sciences from when products come off of the farm all the way through to the consumer. So that means that we have to process them in some way so they'll have a longer shelf life, or we'll analyze them for sensory attributes like flavor or crunch or things like that. And so literally when you walk into a supermarket, every single thing you see in that supermarket has been worked on by a food scientist. From something as simple as a head of lettuce, where we wash it to remove dirt, or maybe we rinse it with chlorine to get rid of E. coli, or perhaps something as complicated as ice cream. So we always say that if we don't work, you don't eat. I think that most of the time when I see students, it's either students that are planning on coming to college, and most of the time they'll say something like, I watch the Food Network all the time, so they're a great advertisement for food science. Or probably the second most common thing that I get is that I like chemistry, and actually there's an awful lot of chemistry in food science. But I will also see other students that are already on campus or at one of our campus locations, and they will find out about food science sort of by the back door. So we're what's called a discovery major. And in some respects, it's such a huge area that it's almost invisible. Nobody thinks about where their food comes from every day. So usually they might have a friend that's in food science, or maybe they have a parent or a friend of a parent that knows something about food science, and they think that this is going to be a really neat field to go into, and it really is. I have to admit that this is going to be a pretty rigorous program. So it is essentially, food science by definition is essentially microbiology, chemistry, nutrition, and engineering. So you're going to be getting all of those courses. So it is a very rigorous program, a lot of science involved. But the nice part about it is almost all of our courses have laboratories associated with it, so you really get hands-on experience. So it's not just a lecture about something, you're really in there making ice cream or cheese or yogurt or things of that sort. And so you really get hands-on a working ability. So when you go out, you are really ready to work for a food company or a food ingredient company. So we do a lot of projects, which are really fun. And there are times when the projects that we do come out great, and there are other times when they just bomb. But they're all a learning experience. And so I have to say that I think the faculty have as much fun as the students do, because it's just a neat program. When our students graduate, I think most of them, if they're wise, have had some kind of an internship, perhaps with a company or some food-related area, perhaps a grocery store or things like that. And so we really urge that sort of at the pre-graduation level. In terms of where they go afterwards, we have a very robust recruiting campaign, so we're right in the middle of it, usually fall semester. So we have Unilever and Smuckers and Kraft and Cargill and you name it come, and they interview our students. And then we actually do it all in-house. We don't go to the Career Service Center. So we do our very best to get them involved either with a food company or a food ingredient company, which a lot of students don't know very much about. And these are the companies that supply ingredients to the major food companies. But a student could be working at a food company or a food ingredient company in product development, so they could create that new food that you see there in the marketplace, and their name is on there, so that's pretty exciting. One of my students actually developed cranberry and raspberry crystal light, so every time I'm in the supermarket, I always think, oh, that's Marie's project, so that's really exciting. They could also work in the government with the Food and Drug Administration, the USDA, Homeland Security, Import-Export. We've had about 5 students go to the Peace Corps, which is really pretty exciting. And then you can go to state departments of agriculture or health or things of that sort. You could also be working at a production facility where they're actually manufacturing the product. And in that case, you might be a manager of a processing line or involved in something like quality control, quality assurance for that product, so that it conforms to government regulations or company specifications. I think the thing that is so amazing about food science, perhaps compared to other majors, is that every day I learn something new. And I'm not sure that you can say that for all majors. And there's some days that I'll say, wow, I didn't know they did it that way. That's really cool. And other days I'll say, wow, I can't believe they did it that way. That's really bad. So I think the neat part about food is it's always changing. You certainly have the global perspective. Students in our program have gone on sort of brief trips to Italy or to Costa Rica. We can actually be involved with study abroad if students are interested. So the nice part about it is you can have your regular classes, you can work in somebody's laboratory, you can go to grad school. It is a pretty recession and depression-proof field. And if you want to change jobs, it's very easy to do that. So you can go, all over the place. I'll give you one little story that sort of sums it up. My first student, who made the cranberry and raspberry crystal light, in her first job, that's what she actually, her first job was at Pillsbury in Springfield, Illinois. And in that case, she was working a sanitation shift. Not exactly the most exciting thing, but her first job. She then went to Mars and was working on products there, and was sent to Brazil to work on cocoa bean fermentation. So that was pretty neat to go to a foreign country. She then went to the Mars plant in Georgia and worked on a product called PB Max, which is no longer on the market. But it's sort of a chocolate granola caramel stacked kind of thing. And the only place to make that on a small scale was Germany. So she would go back and forth to Germany and do the processing there, come back and test market it here. After that time, she ended up getting married. She moved back up north. She went to General Foods, and that's when she worked on the Crystal Light. Little bit of a commute for her, so she looked into working for a food ingredient company where she worked on chocolate. And again, by that time she started having children, and then moved on to McNeil Labs, where she was project manager for Benecol, which is a cholesterol lowering margarine. So with this one degree, she worked East Coast, South, Midwest. She worked in the United States, Brazil, and Germany. And she worked in a food company, a food ingredient company, and a pharmaceutical company, all with the same degree. And I don't know of very many majors that can do that kind of thing.